Welcome to the Advancement Podcast. Our mission is to reach the lost in America by advancing leaders and churches so that communities are transformed. Join us as we discuss how to stay healthy as leaders, work in teams, and lead change. Come on, let's advance together.
Hello and welcome to the second ever Advancement Podcast that I get to be on with the great Tim Ware. We are here at Mug on the Square.
Mug on the Square. Look at that.
My daughter says we got to do cheers.
Oh, does she?
Yeah.
That's what happens when you have a 4-year-old daughter.
Yeah. Every time we have drinks, she's like, "Cheers, Daddy."
Well, here we are starting 2020, and this is one of the changes we've made is we're going to a weekly episode this year. So we're excited about that. And when we started talking about what we want to do this year, as we've taken the fall of 2019, we looked into what the Lord is saying to us, and there were 3 things that He's really helping us narrow advancement down to: looking at transition and change in leadership, to look at healthy leaders, and to look at the idea of teams. That seems to be where the anointing and we get the most traction. And so talking about teams just felt like the right thing, because healthy leaders work in teams.
Yeah.
I mean, you're not a leader if you don't have a team.
Right.
And also, if you try to do change or transition without a team, you're an idiot.
Is that the nice way to say it?
Well, maybe
You're an idiot.
Is that a little strong, Todd? You're having an influence on me already.
Yeah. Don't be such an idiot.
So,
Advancement Podcast.cc.
So I'm thrilled to have that we've got Gary Reinecke on with us today, and for this first 3 episode series on team. Gary and I met this past October in Anaheim at a meeting about replanting churches. It's so good to have you with us, Gary.
Hey, thanks, Tim and Todd. Just want to say thanks for the opportunity to be a part of the podcast today. And I'm all excited about investing in the next generation of leaders. This is a great topic.
For those of you who don't know, Gary's an author. He's the executive director of In Focus Ministries, and he has a passion to empower leaders to start and reproduce healthy churches.
Yeah.
I love all of that right there.
Now, Tim, are they going to give us flack that we are making Texas more like California, or is that no?
You know, Gary lives outside of the city. He's a mountain biker. His wife's a trainer. He doesn't live in the country, but he's close.
Oh, so he's your guy.
He's kind of my guy.
Okay.
Yeah. Gary also has his doctorate of ministry from Fuller Theological Seminary, and he's a master certified coach with the International Coaching Federation. And I know how much work that takes. So that's really cool. My wife's actually, she's part of the ICF, but I haven't gone down that road yet.
Yeah.
Gary, I knew I recognized your name, but when we started passing information back and forth, I realized when I first got into coaching, I read one of the books that you and Bob Logan wrote together.
Yes. Probably the Coaching 101 handbook. We got into the coaching process.
Yeah, that's the one. How did you know?
Well, there's not a lot of them.
Well, I love the fact, you spend a lot of time coaching leaders, and also one of the things that when we've met in California, you talked about coaching church planters a lot.
Yes.
And Todd's actually a church planter. I don't know if I told you that. He's a church planter. 6 years in.
7
years in.
Year of perfection. Nothing's been perfect yet, so it's great.
But one of the things that we know about church planting is you don't do it without a team.
Yeah,
not anymore. So that's why I really felt like you'd be good on helping us with teams. So as we dig into this episode today, let's talk about, help us with just answering some questions that pastors have. Let's start with just a basic one, because the median church in America is still about 75 to 80 people. Right. And the average church is still under 200.
Right.
Yet we find pastors who want to go it alone. So why don't you let's start by just talking about why team is important.
Yeah, I like to start just by the DNA that is designed in the church as we look at scripture, think back to Ephesians 4:11 and 12, the APAS gifts,
Right.
1 Corinthians 7, Romans 12, 1 Peter 4. It's not about hoarding or controlling ministry. It's the pastor's, the church planter's role to empower.
Oh, that's good.
Begin to help people understand their gifts, their unique design, and then allow them to use those and accelerate the growth of the ministry. So there's one real good reason. It is designed in the DNA of the church for it to empower leaders so that we can make more and better disciples, more and better churches.
I love the fact that you've taken us right back to the DNA of the church from the first century. I think it's interesting, though. Todd's ADD's kicking in. People are walking in and out as we're recording in a public place. He's going.
Yeah. One of the others waved at me. I'm like, can't wait back.
Good choice, by the way, doing it in a cafe like that.
Well, thank you. We're trying something different. So
Trying to be hip with the cool kids.
I'm trying to be hip with the cool kid.
I wish that I could be like the cool kid.
Anyway, so Gary, that's
never heard that song.
No, I haven't. That's a great comment, because most of our pastors are still not they come to this place. I don't know. I think they often start with the idea of team, but even in church planning, they tell us that by the 5th year, the team you planted with is gone.
Yeah. For the most part, yes.
I think it's interesting that we see guys in leadership, they start with a team, but they end up in this place of saying, it's just easier if I just do it myself.
Right. There's this old adage, you've heard it before, go alone and you go faster, but take a team and you go further.
Oh, it's good.
And I think that's a good point to bring out. You can move fast, right, if you want to go alone, but if you want to go further in your ministry, you'll want people around you.
Yeah.
I really like that. As I was driving in this morning and praying, I was thinking about that fact, because you and your wife mountain biking and running and exercising, you guys understand the idea of pace and the importance of pace.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I was thinking about how a team really helps a pastor and a leader maintain the right pace. Yes. If they're a high D and a driver and will push everybody.
Yeah, you know nothing about that.
I know nothing about that either. A team slows you down to the right pace.
Yeah.
But for the leader that's a little risk averse, a team pushes you to maintain a pace.
Yeah. A good illustration is using the analogy of a runner. So some leaders are really designed to be sprinters, and the sprinters can go hard and fast for a short period of time, but ministry is more like a marathon. There's a long race ahead, and there's this issue of sustainability. How long can you sustain the pace that you're currently at? And I think you're right. A team will help you work at the speed of God, okay?
That's good. That's really
more
good.
More so than if you go at it alone.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love the idea, but I think the picture of the sprinter, because really that's the kind of leaders that you and I are.
I'm a sprinter.
I don't know about you, Gary, but we're both. Todd is he's a high D, and I'm a high D on the disc, and so we like to run and run hard.
Yeah, we really run hard. My wife always tells me, "Can we just slow down and think about this for a little bit?"
Yeah.
I'm like, "What's there to think about? Let's go. I mean, come on, this is a perfect decision.
We think on the run."
Yeah, I don't know what else we need to talk about. Let's go. But this idea of team helps you learn to be a marathoner, not just a sprinter.
Yes. Yes. And I think there are seasons where you must sprint.
Okay.
And then there are seasons when you do have to take more of the cross-country approach.
All right, unpack that a little bit for us. That.
Okay. On the front end of a church plant, there's some deadlines that you've probably put in place in order to get your church lifted and through launch. That's a hard sprint, but you know the next Sunday is coming, and then the Sunday after that, and so on and so forth. Then it moves from a sprint into more of a marathon because you can't sustain that sprinting pace indefinitely. Does that make sense?
Yeah, as you're describing that, I remember the idea of, I don't know if you know, I'm a history guy, and the idea of a forced march.
Yes.
The way they used to do the British soldiers back in the colonial days, the way they do a forced march is you would jog for 5 minutes, then you would walk for 2 minutes, and you would jog for 5 minutes. So it's that was the fastest way to get there. So there was built-in rest cycles.
Yes.
And it sounds like you're talking about the same type of thing in pace as a leader and how a team coordinate and work together.
Yeah, there's kind of the tension and a healthy relationship. There's a synergistic relationship between the sprint and the marathon.
So what you're saying is we have to avoid pushing our staff to a death march.
I wish I would have said that, Todd. Yeah, that's exactly what I was trying to say.
That's exactly what was going through my mind.
Well, that's what I have to tell myself. You can't kill them all. Can't kill them all. You just gotta stay at a good pace, consistent pace. Tim told me one time, he goes, you can't get to the end of the ministry and look at a line of dead bodies behind you. You remember saying that to me?
I do remember saying that because I think the context was that I look back and I've left a trail of bodies. I hadn't learned that lesson early enough.
Yeah.
Well, and I think that's the part that's difficult for leaders when we talk about team is that, all right, let's just be honest. As guys that like to run hard, if we're not careful, we'll build a team out of people who can run hard and will kill the congregation.
Yeah.
Yes, agreed.
So that's a great segue. Since you help church planners build teams, and just for the sake, I mean, if you're listening and you're not a church planner, when are those sprint seasons? Easter. You sprint to Easter.
Right.
You sprint into some outreach days.
Right.
And then you have to do the marathon sustaining pieces in between.
Yes.
But since you help them build teams, how do you help guys build teams so that they don't just recruit people like themselves and build an unbalanced team?
Beautiful question. Because we do tend to hire people like ourselves, especially early on in ministry. That's just a natural inclination that we have. What I would do with leaders who are trying to build a team that had some diversity on it, that's what we're kind of getting at, right? Mm-hmm. I would look clearly at the functional roles that I want the team members to play first and foremost. I think one mistake I see young leaders make especially is they hire personality, friendships, people who are available at the cost of function. So what are you really wanting that person to do first and foremost? And then vet against that job description so that you get the right kind of person doing the job.
Okay, go ahead.
Then you can kind of expand on that. Then you can look at the personality, the temperament, and so forth. But make sure you get the function right first. Does that make sense?
I love that. All right. I'm going to let you reflect on that before I dig in.
Well, I mean, I see myself in his statement. When I first started planning the church, it was what live, breathing body can I find to help me?
Exactly.
And it's, some of it's just your connections, your friends, and people. You're around people that are like you. But I've found that the more I reach out into other circles, I find people that I wouldn't necessarily run into that maybe push me on aspects that I don't always like sometimes, but it pushes me to be a better leader.
Yes.
Yeah, and I think that's exactly true. When you use the term functional roles, are you actually looking for roles, or are you looking for gift mixes that bring balance? Help.
Yeah. Let me ask Todd, if you would. Yeah. What's the first role that you brought into your team?
the first role I had to bring in, I came in and I had to hire a worship pastor instantly.
Okay.
And I basically just found a warm body. He was there for 6 months, and then I had to replace him with somebody else. But I just needed to get somebody. I actually had to hire him before my first service.
Okay. So I think in that example, you filled a role, maybe didn't get the right gifting or fit with that person.
Yeah, I just had to find somebody that could sing and play.
Yeah. So Tim, back to your question, I think it's a both and.
Okay.
Okay. You want to fill a role, but you certainly want the right person with the gifting to do that role.
Right. Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think that's great. I think one of the things I also, when I think about team, one of the struggles that a lot of especially young leaders have is they often think the team's going to be with them forever.
Right.
And
like a marriage.
Yeah. And the reality is that rarely do teams last long term.
Right.
The people that get you to here,
not the rule.
that's right. The people that get you here are probably not going to get you the next level.
Yes, agreed.
You needed somebody to get you started.
Yeah.
You didn't need somebody. How many times have you changed worship pastors in 7 years?
4 or 5 times.
Okay. And the one you've got now,
I hope she stays forever.
It's really good.
Yeah, she's really good.
I'm glad you said that because she may be listening right now.
Yeah. I sometimes I pray and say, Lord, if you could let her stay with me forever, I would be a good Christian, and say my prayers. And
You're negotiating.
Yeah. It's good theology, right?
Yeah. Tell me how that works for you.
Yeah, that's right.
It's not going to.
For sure. Well, I really think this piece of, Jim Collins always used to, in his book, Good to Great, writes, you get the right people on the bus and then get them in the right place.
Right.
Unfortunately, I think the way in Christianity, in business, it's easy to interpret that about, I need this kind of person. But in the church world, I think there's just this unspoken thing that lends itself towards the relational away from the functional.
Yeah.
Yes.
And how do you help guys wrestle with that tension and overcome that? But I like them.
Yeah.
They're fun to be with.
Yeah. This is where that analytical side needs to kick in, I think, where the leader needs to say, first and foremost, as a leader, I need to get the right people around me in order for us to thrive in ministry together. So first and foremost is function. Real close to that is fit. Do they have a good fit with us, that chemistry piece that allows us to work together closely and still enjoy each other? You don't have to be best friends, and I know that's another dimension of this, but you need to have a certain chemistry or rapport in order for the team to thrive.
Well, I think that's a beautiful. When you say fit, I thought of something else also, because sometimes the people we're in relationship with, they don't fit the culture of the church or organization we're building.
Yes.
They may fit us personally, but they don't fit the church culture.
Right.
And there's a definite component to that seems like when we're talking about team that matters.
Yeah. Absolutely. There are tools that can help assess the fit. I use one that I'm very comfortable with and confident with. And what it does, there's a tool that's called the job success analysis. Okay. And it measures the fit, which is the enjoyment level a person will have given a certain job description that I put into the system. Whatever tool you use, that fit, it's a cultural fit and it's a job fit. And you'll see, they look at, in the tool I use, 175 traits.
Wow.
And I can determine if this person's a good fit, a probable fit, or an unlikely fit.
Okay.
But whatever tool you use, whether it's just interviews, I think that's a good place to start. But there's other tools out there you can use help assess that.
So in a smaller church using the interview, but once you get into your larger churches where there's a ton of different dynamics, a tool like this could really be a big deal. Is this I'm assuming that with 175 traits, this is not a free tool.
It's not a free tool, but I would encourage a church planter from day one to begin using a tool like this.
So is this a tool that you have to have somebody like you go through? They have to, or is it something that's an online tool, or is it a trainer they have to work with?
You need to work with what's called the debriefer. The name of the tool is the Harrison.
Okay.
You need to have someone who's trained and certified in that to do the debrief. And then you'll have a pretty accurate read on whether this person's a good fit or not. And it works well for hiring, developing, and then releasing.
Okay. Well, one of the things I want to put that in the show notes, and I want to give is it okay if we give a link to your email? Because I'd love for guys to be able to connect to you and use this. Cause that's an amazing tool. I've never heard of it.
Oh yeah, it's a powerful tool. And here's one little factoid about the tool. It's one of the few of this type that will be used in legal situations, and it will hold up in court.
Wow.
Oh, nice.
So, if a person says I was unfairly fired from my job, they can pull the data from that tool.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it can litigate.
That's easy to sell to a board.
I'm thinking about some of your past employees.
What are we
But you want to have confidence, right, in the tool that you use.
Yeah.
That's the point.
Well, but that is a good confidence builder.
So can I ask a question since you use me as since you threw me out of the bus and ran over.
Yeah, I wasn't going to say it, but.
Yeah. So this year, Gary, has been probably the worst in ministry I've ever had. I think by the end of the year, we'll have lost 3 or 4 staff members. Some were good. Some ripped my heart out and stomped out of them.
Yeah.
So how do we as leaders manage the hurt? Because we sometimes we want to build teams, but then we're afraid to be hurt again.
Yeah.
Because those times, especially this year, I can understand why guys would I just want to do this on my own because I never want my heart to be torn out and stomped on again.
Right.
Yeah. Great question.
It's a really great question. I'm in the middle of one of your situations right now. Okay. Yeah. We're on the tail end of what you just described. And to the senior leader, this is a very difficult journey because it's testing and it's exposing and it's digging deeper into him.
Yeah.
And it's not something that you can just move on without any collateral damage. I think that's the reality. And how I would, if I was just going to simplify what you do, you must, I think, either have a trusted confidant outside of the congregation, a coach, or someone you can share that pain with, because you are going to carry whatever scars you have forward into your relationships. And you may, like you said, you may want to withdraw and not ever add anybody to your team. And that's not good for you or the church.
Well, and I found myself almost looking for the flaws of the ones that I've had to get rid of in people that I interview, and then catch myself do that and say, oh, you can't do that. You can't make them pay for what you had. And it's just a constant second guessing yourself and just wondering, did I make a mistake in hiring them to begin with? And
there's that tendency anytime you've had a bad experience to pendulum swing way to the other side and totally forget what was good about what was there.
Yeah.
Yes. Right on.
So go ahead, since you walked this out, help us out a little more with this.
Well, let's just talk about transitioning. Okay. Because hiring or letting staff go is the most stressful season within a church's life, the church staff's life.
Yeah.
And I think it's important, and I've worked with a lot of leaders on this, that you recognize there's 3 phases in a transition. And then, Tim, I'm going to give it back to you. Okay. There's the pre-phase where you prepare for it. So do your due diligence to prepare, whether you're firing or you're hiring. Have a plan, and don't go and shoot from the hip. That doesn't work. Okay. So prepare, then execute, do the transition. But then there's this post, and this is kind of where I hear you're at right now, Todd, is now what do I do after the fact? I've got 3 or 4 vacancies on my staff, plus relationally, there's some fallout. What are you going to do in order to, now you've got to lead through this season? So the transition, and the post, I think, is important to recognize.
Wow. Well, we actually had some guys ask questions. We sent out on social media, told them we were talking about this, and we had some questions come about transition.
Okay.
And I would like to hold this over, and let's dig into that as part of our
Sure.
next episode. We're really coming up kind of on the end of our time with this one. There's so much good stuff here that I've heard and kind of my notes. I think that I love when you said that ministry, it's not about hoarding. We need to have a team, because this is not about hoarding ministry, but empowering ministry.
Yes.
And the old adage of going alone, you can go faster, but taking a team, you'll go further.
Mm-hmm.
The idea that you said it's a mistake to begin building your team with relationship and personality rather than function.
Yeah.
You've mentioned 2 or 3 times in this conversation about job descriptions.
Yes.
And I'm glad you because we're at Advancement. We're huge advocates of that.
Yes.
And for those of you who think that's unspiritual and want to call them ministry descriptions, that's okay too. I do know
whatever
a couple
you
of
call
guys,
it, you need it.
but I think that's a huge piece, and and I just love the idea of the Harrison tool. So, Todd, what's your takeaway from our conversation?
For me, it was 2 things. Number one, this is a marathon, not a sprint. I find
That's
myself.
good to know that you picked up on that.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I tend to be a sprinter. I know that I don't look like a sprinter because I love food, but I have to understand this to play the long game, and I have to remind myself of that over and over and over. Especially, Gary, I have 4 children.
Wow.
So I have to remind myself that I still need to be a dad,
right,
as well as a pastor, as well as a husband, as well as this is a long game for me. And I want my kids to be in this as well with me, and I don't want to wear them out too.
4 children under the age of 8.
Yeah.
Well done.
Yeah. Yeah. I only wanted 2. It's a longer story for another time. But, and then also the importance of not necessarily finding the personality, but finding the right person for the team. Because I've had a few people lately that didn't fit in well with the team, and it caused almost some of my better staff member to spend more time worried about that person than doing what they actually needed to be doing. And it was sideways motions.
Yes.
And that didn't help us.
Yeah.
Yeah, you get
that topic right there.
Yeah. Because you can get good people on your team. They can be good people, but if they don't fit the team, they will disrupt the synergy so much.
Yes.
So Gary, as the master certified coach,
Jedi master.
You're that's
Teach
right.
me your ways, Obi-Wan.
I can
we
hardly
say that. Will Disney copyright?
I don't know if Disney's going to get on us for you calling him Obi-Wan or not. But usually, we like to leave everybody with a coaching question, but I feel inferior in the moment with having you here. So just based on the dialogue of the last 25 minutes, what question do you think would be a good one to leave with the pastors and leaders who are listening, that they can process and go forward?
All right. Real simple question here. It's a who question. Who can you delegate responsibility to and develop?
Oh yeah.
That's
Who
a
can-
today real kind of question is who can you delegate and develop?
That's excellent.
That's good.
That is so good.
Delegate and develop.
Well, Gary's going to hang on for a couple more. Thank you to Mug on
Mug
the
on the square.
on the square,
I love that.
Downtown Cleburne.
downtown Cleburne, and thank you, Gary. We'll
Welcome.
and thanks everybody for listening to the Advancement Podcast.
All right. Thanks, Tim. Thanks, Todd.
If you would like to keep this content coming, all Tim and Todd ask is $1 per show. See how to give, maybe even sponsor an episode or series on the website advancement.cc. Until next week, continue to advance the mission of Jesus.